From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Keeping a tradition alive out on the water.
Every time you buy, that local shrimp or that domestic product, you're helping to provide some economic stability.
Hear from some southern shrimpers just trying to stay afloat. When's the right time to treat soybeans for diseases?
This is kind of that optimum window to spray our fungicides.
Some advice before you spray. As crop conditions continue to hold steady.
It's kind of like catching a falling knife, trying to market soybeans and corn.
Farmers face difficult marketing decisions. Right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Rook. Clinton is on vacation. Grains continuing to push lower on Tuesday as corn and soybean conditions continued to mostly hold. The latest crop progress report from USDA showing 68% of the corn crop is rated good to excellent. Now that's up 1% from last week. Last year, 55% of the corn crop was in the top two categories. For soybeans, 67% of the crop is in good to excellent categories. That's down 1% from the previous week. This time last year, just 52% of the crop was good to excellent. In many of the key growing areas, the last couple of weeks, weather-wise, have been a little dry, but not very hot. But right now, just 4% of the Corn Belt is dealing with drought conditions compared to 59% this time last year.
And that lack of extreme heat has certainly benefited corn and soybeans as they move through the reproductive to filling stage of development.
Winter wheat harvest is nearing an end, now 82% completed, with crews starting to move into Montana and Idaho. In Arkansas, the soybean crop is looking pretty good this year, with 71% rated good to excellent. Farm Journal's Ty Morgan traveled to the northeast portion of the state, and as she reports, the biggest challenge right now for many farmers does not necessarily have to do with yields.
We've had a pleasant year.
Wading through the sea of soybeans.
Rains have been, for the most part, pretty timely.
Arkansas farmer Becton Bell likes what he sees.
We've irrigated some, but every time we start irrigating, we'll get a rain that kind of stops us, or maybe right after we finish, we'll get a rain. So the irrigation hadn't been as critical this year as it typically is. So we've been pretty fortunate.
Timely rains and only short spurts of heat means growing conditions here in northeast Arkansas this year have been like a greenhouse.
Really almost scary to say this, but almost perfect as far as our timings. Our corn crop looks like it could be one of our best corn crops we ever had, as does our soybean crop. So I'm optimistic.
While input costs remain high, one area he's saving on this year is irrigation. Typically, Bell says he has to irrigate corn up to 10 times. Soybeans can require 7 doses of irrigation a year. But even in his rice crop, thanks to this rain, that expense is down.
We've probably irrigated half of what we normally do. So, it could be very easily be a several $100,000 savings to our bottom line.
In a year where every penny counts, that's a relief. But the reality for Bell and other farmers here is marketing this crop is coming at a loss.
It's been the markets, to be honest. I mean, it's just there's hasn't been a good marketing opportunity. It's kind of like catching a falling knife, trying to market soybeans and corn. So that's been the challenge. Nobody wants to catch that falling knife.
Chances for rain are improving in the Midwest, while heat is moving back into the central and southwestern U.S. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has more.
Yeah, we do have some rain in the forecast for the Midwest, and unfortunately it's not one of those systems that is going to provide a soaking rain or widespread showers. Rather, very specific ridge riders, as we'll call them, coming down off of the ridge that we've been talking about the last week or so. So that ridge, again, developing back off here towards the east. We're going to get a little bit more help with coverage early Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon with this trough setting up, this shallow trough moving through. By Friday at 9 a.m., we're kind of back into that situation where the ridge is going to develop back out here towards the west, and then we may get some showers and thunderstorms riding down off of this ridge and then picking back up to the northeast to the what would be the east side of this shallow trough that is going to bring some cloud cover and cooler temperatures in and across the northeast. That being said, into next week, the big story is going to be that ridge developing. We're also keeping our eye on what's going on in the tropics. May get another tropical system just off the coast of Florida as we head into the weekend. And Mike in Norfolk County in Ontario, Canada, doing a little field work. He says slow and steady wins the race. So it looks like the grain cart operator is doing an awesome job too. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
This may be something many farmers are looking into right now, the right time to apply a soybean foliar fungicide. Experts tell us you can get the biggest return on investment from the application by determining the crop's growth stage. Currently in the Midwest, many soybean crops are somewhere between the R2 and R4 growth stages. According to agronomists at the 2024 Farm Journal Corn and Soybean College, that's where the biggest yield moves occur, both up and down.
This bean has a lot of potential yet, but we've already got these pods loaded on this early planted bean, and that's where a lot of our yield stability and our consistent results with early planting beans comes from, is getting those beans to flower early June before the solstice, get those pods to set, and then hold on to the rest of the season.
He says during the R2 to R4 stage, growers need to do everything they can to protect the beans so they hang on to the flowers as pods. That includes identifying fungal diseases and properly timing foliar fungicide applications.
We count down 4 nodes, and we do have a pod that's 3/16 of an inch at that 4th node down. So this is going to be an R3 soybean. This is kind of that optimum window to spray our fungicides.
He says by preserving pods from aborting in the earlier growth stages, it provides the setup for the optimum soybean yield potential in August. One place farmers may be saving money right now, at the diesel pump, with recent trends indicating that diesel fuel costs have gone down. In June, the average price for a gallon of diesel was $3.72. That marked the lowest level in 2 years. It represents a significant drop from the record highs seen in the summer of 2022. That's when diesel prices peaked at $5.81 per gallon. It was attributed to factors such as the Russia-Ukraine war and supply chain disruptions. Patrick DeHaan of Gas Buddy is now advising farmers to consider locking in their diesel supplies for the fall. And he says prices are expected to drop by up to 25 cents per gallon over the next few weeks. Still ahead, grain markets were back in the red again on Tuesday with soybeans falling double digits. Has the market hit its bottom yet? I'll dive into that coming up. And later we head to the seafood coast for a look at how shrimpers in Georgia are faring amid tough competition in the country. AGCO announced earlier this month in a filing it plans to cut up to 6% of its salaried workforce. Now we're getting a better picture of the company's financial situation. The ag machinery maker reporting net sales of $3.2 billion for the second quarter. Now that's a drop of 15.1% compared to the second quarter of last year. It's also reporting a net loss of $4.92 per share. That includes the estimated loss of its grain and protein business that, as we have reported, is for sale. Looking at the first 6 months of the year, net sales were approximately $6.2 billion, a drop of more than 13% compared to 2023. The company's CEO says the second quarter results were influenced by weakening market conditions and significant production cuts, which were aimed at reducing company and dealer inventories. And ADM also reporting its second quarter earnings, revealing a significant drop in profits compared to last year. It says net earnings fell to $486 million or 98 cents a share. A year ago, the company reported $927 million in earnings. An adjusted profit of $103 a share fell short of Wall Street estimates. Grains all lower again on Tuesday. Allison Thompson with the Money Farm is back with analysis, and we continue to see pressure in the grains, really a lack of news and a lack of a weather threat, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're just not getting any fresh news to really spark the market or spark any buying interest in the grain market. So unfortunately, that just means we are trending lower. That's where the trend has been, and we're not seeing anything to change that. So until we see a spark of some fresh news, I think that's where the trend is going to be. Hopefully we receive some sooner or later, but we're kind of entering the summer doldrums. We're not getting a whole lot of fresh news here over the next couple of weeks. We've seen weather really disappear. We're not seeing much for export business. So as of right now, it's just kind of doom and gloom in the grain markets.
And unfortunately, the funds are short and they're pretty much in control in the driver's seat, aren't they?
Yes, they continue to be short. We did see them actually shorten up some of their short positions this last week, or they bought some back, lighten their load a little bit. But again, they still remain large net short, and those have been winning trades. And I think over the past 6 months, we've all been just patiently waiting for some time of a short covering rally or see them cover their short positions. But the funds won't do that without a reason. They won't just, liquidate them or get out or change sides just because. They need a reason to do that. And so far, we haven't seen anything come about to give them a reason. The weather potentially had momentum to do it last week, but again, that fell apart. So now we're kind of stuck onto those same headlines as far as getting them to move out. And we are going into month end here this week. So we might see the funds actually dress up some of their positions and maybe extend some of their short positions.
No doubt. So where do you think we need to hold here? What are the next areas of support? I mean, could this thing get even uglier?
We're kind of waiting for some fundamental data to move the market one way or another. But until then, those support levels are definitely going to be key for holding at least where we're at. But again, it's right now we're just not seeing anything to really spark a move one way or the other. I have a feeling that we're finding trading ranges in all three major grades until we do get something new.
Thanks so much, Ellison Thompson with the Money Farm. We'll have more Ag Day coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Let's look at that temperature outlook. So starting to see the blue finally showing up on the map. August 6th through the 12th, our troughs are going to get a little bit stronger. Conversely, our ridge is going to get a little bit weaker. So that's going to allow that cooler air to sink back down here farther to the south. Now, what we're going to be looking for is where you have this relationship with the ridge and this trough possibly developing during this time span. It's a chance of some showers or some thunderstorms right along that grading. Again, it all depends on where everything pans out with the ridge location and that trough. But a little bit more blue now starting to show up on the map. Still hot into the northwest. That includes Washington, Oregon, and California, and Nevada. We're expecting above normal temperatures. As for the precipitation outlook, so again, as that ridge starts to break down, a little bit more moisture to work with through Colorado and then also through the Dakotas, extending out here towards the east into the Midwest. That's the 4th through the 8th. Now, I'm not talking a very high or confidently high chance of wetter than normal conditions through the Midwest, but right now the way things are setting up with that ridge and that trough, looking at just above normal precipitation, possibly across those areas. Over towards the East Coast, this has to do with that tropical system that we're talking a little bit about. We'll have more ideas on exactly where that could form and where it could go once we get into the weekend. Speaking of which, here's a look at that jet stream as we go through the next couple of days. Kind of start, we'll go before and then work our way through with this jet stream into Saturday and Sunday of next week and even into Friday. Overall, we're expecting this ridge to dominate the forecast with this shallow trough over here towards the northeast being the main feature. So there's a look at what we have in and across the United States. Lolo, Montana, high around 89 degrees, sunny, low of 53. Liberty, Missouri, mostly sunny, high 98, low of 74. Logan, New Jersey, partly cloudy, high of 90, low of 73 degrees.
The U.S. Meat Export Federation says Malaysia is emerging as a promising destination for U.S. pork exports. The group says in the past, Malaysia has had a cumbersome process for approving U.S. plants, but says progress has been made.
Malaysia had requested to come do a physical audit of 5 pork facilities. They wanted a selection of 5 facilities to physically audit, and then therefore if all 5 pork plants passed the audit, any future pork plants wanting to be registered for Malaysia could do so via a paper application process and not have to host a physical audit in order to become registered. And then in early 2024, another facility attempted to get registered. We were just told on Monday that this approval came through. So we think that it's a harbinger of good things to come.
USMEF says it's also working to get more U.S. beef plants approved for Malaysia, but says that process is more challenging because not only does the country's Department of Veterinary Services need to be involved in a physical audit, the country also needs to certify the meat can accommodate Muslims. More than 60% of Malaysia's population identifies as Muslim. And U.S. pork exports to Mexico are expected to continue to remain strong. Experts say Mexico is experiencing a reduction in hog inventory. It's due to months of financial losses, leading to fewer hogs being available. That's driving up prices as demand outstrips supply. Inflation is also a big problem in Mexico. There's also been extended droughts in the country, leading consumers to substitute pork for more expensive beef cuts. This has led to a surge in U.S. pork exports due to price differences, further tightening supplies in the Mexican market. Coming up, it's shrimping season in Georgia, but some shrimpers in one part of the country say they could soon be out of business. The reasons why, next. While summer is big for burgers on the grill, you can't ignore Americans love a great shrimp boil. But as Damon Jones of the Georgia Farm Monitor tells us, overseas competition is threatening the state's shrimping industry.
Ask any visitor to the Georgia coast what they're hoping to eat, and seafood will likely be the overwhelming favorite, specifically freshly caught shrimp. However, the industry has really struggled over the past year due mainly to overseas competition.
You know, it's no secret that shrimp's the #1 type of seafood we eat here in this country, and that there's a large dependence on foreign shrimp. But because of the pandemic and because of market shifts, you had a lot of foreign shrimp flood the market this past year that weren't able to, in previous years get here. And that just overabundance of imported shrimp coming into the market really made it challenging for our domestic industry to really move their products.
For that reason, shrimpers have either had to find creative ways to market their products, like direct-to-consumer sales and prepackaged meals, or get out of the business completely.
When you take into all the overhead cost of maintaining your boat, trying to find a crew, being able to get a price that can compete, with what you see on that foreign level, it really makes it challenging economically for a lot of the industry members to stay in it.
That's why buying local whenever possible is so important despite the higher price tag, as you're not just paying for quality and freshness, but also supporting the Georgia economy.
When consumers go to the grocery store and they see why is this shrimp so much more expensive than one that might come from another country, you've got to realize what goes into that from the minute it's harvested to handle, process, and distributed. And I think that's a key message. Every time you buy, that local shrimp or that domestic product, you're helping to provide some economic stability in a very challenging environment right now for our industry.
And it's been that way for the past decade, which is why the future of Georgia's shrimping industry is in such doubt, with the next generation looking for other options.
Traditionally, shrimping and a lot of our commercial fishermen, these are typically, traditions that were passed on through generations, and a lot of that younger generation are saying, we're not going to get into it. And so there is that concern of where is our industry going to come from, because it's not just the fishermen themselves, but do we have the processors? Do we have the distributors? I mean, when we look at our food systems, whether we're talking about a land-based ag product or a fish, we have to have an intact food system, and that is something that has made it more and more challenging for people to stay in.
It's a harsh reality that could have a major impact on a number of communities along coastal Georgia.
this is part of that identity of the Georgia coast when they come here, being able to see these shrimp boats or somebody, you know, harvesting crabs. And that's something not only from a cultural aspect, but from an economic aspect that a lot of our smaller coastal communities vitally depend on. And it has ramifications through tourism and other sectors along our coast.
Reporting from Brunswick, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
And our thanks to Damon Jones and the Georgia Farm Monitor for sharing that story. Well, that's all the time that we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Michelle Rook. Have yourself a great day.